In this session, we're going to take a look at dressing up our flat vector designs, and we're going to approach this from a standpoint of creating a design that simulates a stitched effect with distress and grunge. Now, if your competitors are only able to work with flat vector like this, but you can design at this level, obviously you're going to have a huge advantage over them. But you can also use these techniques for what we call upselling. If the client asks for something like this, you create that for them. Then you take a few minutes and you dress it up and make it look like this, and you show them both designs and you say, I created this for you, but you know what? I created this also, and I can print these for you for an extra $2 or $2.50 a shirt. Well, if it's a senior class with 400 students, that's going to be an extra $800 or $900 in the order. And we've got some testimonies, information about upselling on our website. We call that upselling. And we've heard from our clients all over the country that are using this, how some of them have actually doubled or tripled the revenue in their business using these simple techniques. And we really do want to be able to send fashion-looking designs out of our shops into the local market. That's very important because people take a lot of pride in what they wear, and if they feel like they're getting fashion from you and just flat stuff from the guy down the street, you're going to have a huge advantage. So you got two things there. Number one, your competitive advantage, and number two, using your upselling to generate more revenue for your business. You know, you're going to set the job up on press anyway. If you add one more color to add this effect and you're making another $2 a shirt or $2.50 a shirt or $3 a shirt, there you are, somewhere between $800 and $900 more in the order or in the print run, and it's only one more color. So in this session, we're going to take a look at how we can take a simple flat vector design like this and dress it up and make it look like a fashion design very easily, working with CorelDRAW. So to get started here, we'll just go ahead and create a simple design. And we're just going to go ahead and see how I would set this up really quickly. It's a pretty easy design to make. But for those of you that are new or just beginning, seeing how the actual design process works can definitely help. So I'm going to start out with my text tool, and I'm just going to create some text here, and we'll just call that Bobcats, B-O-B capitals. And then beneath that, I'll do seniors. And I'm just holding down my shift key to get capitals. And then beneath that, I'll actually go ahead and do 20, and then again I'll do 15. And if I hold down Control K, it'll break all of that apart for me. I'll go ahead and lasso and select everything here. I'm going to go to my fonts. I'll be using a font in this session called Intramural right here, and I'll be working that. That's kind of a sports font, and you can get that for free on www.dafont.com. I want to go ahead and use my shape tool here, and you can see these handles on the fonts here, and you can left click and just drag that out and separate that a little bit. Do that the same here with the seniors. We'll just spread that out a little bit. Same thing with the 20, because I'm going to be applying some effects to this, not too much, just a little bit there. And the same thing with the 15, just because of some of the outlines that I'll be working with here when I'm creating the design. The next thing that I want to do is I'll go ahead and get my polygon tool here to create my shield, and that's set up with 5 points. I'll just go ahead and create my shield kind of like the shape I'd want here, as you can see right there. Now I'll go ahead and convert that to curves. I'm going to keep my shield easy here. Then I'll come up here and I'll mirror that vertically. Then I'll go over here to my shape tool, and I'll go ahead and select these 3 nodes here, delete those and delete those, and I get a perfect shield shape without trying to draw it with the Bezier tool, working with shapes as opposed to the Bezier tool. The next thing I'm going to do is grab the ellipse tool here. I'll just create an ellipse that's going to come right to that center point there. Go get my pick tool, and then I'll go ahead and duplicate that. Left click, hold down, grab my control to constrain, right click one time. That'll set that up to duplicate and bring that over to the center. Hold down shift, select both of these, come up here into the multiple objects properties bar, weld those together, zoom in here, make sure we're going to come to a point. We are. Go ahead and lasso both of these, come up here again, click on front minus back, and there's my shield. Now if I want to edit my shield shape, I could do something like effects, go to add perspective, and then from here I'll hold down control and shift and control, and I can change that shape, and that would be my shield shape. The next thing I'm going to do is create a capital S. Just use my artistic text tool, and I'll hold down Shift and hit S, and we'll make that a capital S. Get a nice bold font here. I've got Claridon. I'll go ahead and grab that and then just center that and bring that up into the shield there, kind of like you can see right there. Go ahead and select everything here, and I'll hit C and E to center all of that. And then I'll take a look here, and what I can do is I want to have these S kind of come off the outside so I can play off the S shape when I create the design. So I'll bring this down here to the center. I'm going to right click on this and I'll select Convert to Curves. I'm going to get my shape tool and I'm just going to pull this line up outside of the shield there, as you can see. And I'll do the same thing here. And then from here what I'll do is I'll go ahead and select both of these, come up again, back minus front. Now I've got one shape. I'll fill that with black, and then I'll take a look at this and do some analysis. Now I can see here I've got some issues going on, so I'll go ahead and delete this node, and that'll just smooth that out. And the same thing here. That just smooths that out. So I've got a nice shield look there. The next thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and get all my different text over here that I created. I'll just bring this over here next to my shield. Up here at the top I'll put my Bobcats, put my 2015 over here next to my shield. I'll go ahead and lasso all three of these, and then I'll hit my E key to center those. If I want to, I can go to my Docker and actually make sure they're all spread apart correctly, but I think I'll be able to eyeball those just fine. I'll bring my seniors to the bottom. I'll move this fit. Now I'm holding down Control to constrain this. You can see how that's constrained, but I'm just moving that over a little bit. And I can arrow that over a little bit there. Now this is all going to be set up here. The next thing I want to do is get an arch going for my Bobcats. So I'll create an ellipse here, and I'll just bring that over the top there, and then I'll take my Bobcat, select that, right click, hold down, and when you see that crosshairs, you just release and you go place, fit text, excuse me, not place, to path. And there's my Bobcats. Now if I want to change the shape of that, I can arch that more. If I want to click off here and then click back on, go back to my shape tool, click on here, I can pull again, but now what I'll do is I'll spread the Bobcats out across the arch or the shape. Get that kind of set up with the look that I want there. Make sure that's centered. Get my curve here and center that. Now I'll right click on my ellipse, not my curve, and I'll just come down, just go ahead and delete that. And there's my Bobcats up at the top. And then I can just go ahead and bring my seniors down at the bottom. I'll resize that a bit. And I might want to spread that text out a little bit with the shape tool, so I'll go back to the shape tool and I'll go ahead and pull that over there. In here, in a matter of about 5 minutes, I've created a custom design. I'll go ahead and lasso everything here except for the 2015. Hit my C key, and that'll center all of that. I'll have to readjust my 2015. And here I can take my 2015, go ahead and right click, and I'll select Convert to Curves on those. I'll go ahead and combine those. Take my S, and I'll hit E just to make sure that's correct there. Then I can hit my C to center that, and that would be centered. But you can see, even though it's actually centered accurately, the space isn't quite right. So I'll go ahead and just use my arrow key to move that over a few times and make that space look correct. And that would be my basic design for my Bobcat Seniors design. The next thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and convert everything here to curves, because I know I've got some artistic text in here. I'm going to be working with the interactive contour tool, so I want to go ahead and just select everything here and then right click and select Convert to Curves. Next thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and click off here. I'll zoom in on the Bobcat text, and I'll come over here to my interactive tools, and I'm going to select Contour. Go ahead, and this is interactive, so I can just left click and select the Bobcats. Left click, hold down, push my mouse forward, and I can put a nice contour around that I'll use for creating my effects. And then I'll come down here to the shield, select that, left click on it one time. Now it's selected, left click, hold down, pull that out. We'll make that a little bit thicker there. Now that came in at 29 steps. I'm going to change that to 1, hit enter, and then I'll just go ahead and do that again. There we go. Now that's at 1 step. Now if I need to verify that, I can go to View Wireframe. I can see that's just 1 step there. We'll go to View and Enhanced. Back to the Enhanced. Now I've got the 2015. I'll left click here, and then we'll just hold down and pull out. Release that. This is changing to 33. I'll go ahead and change that to 1, and we'll do that again. And that'll be okay right there. And then we'll left click here. With this selected, we want to change this to 1 and not 24. Change that to 1. Now pull out, and we want to keep some of the detail here. And we'll go ahead, and this is actually set to 1. It's going based on the divisions of a contour offset that's set here that I didn't set. But this is actually set up as 1, and I can see that here in View Wireframe. That it's just 1, it's not 16 steps. Go back to View and Enhanced. Then I'll just go ahead and I can right click here and select Break Contour Group Apart. Or I could select everything and go to Arrange, break all of that apart, break 8 objects apart. As you can see there, and that broke all of those contours apart. And now if I select this and move that, you can see the contour in the background. So I'll go here and select all of my different black objects that are not contoured, and I'm just holding down Shift and clicking on these. Make sure I've got all of them, and actually hold down Shift, click there, and click right here. Move all these, make sure I've got them all selected. I do. Go ahead and combine those. I'll hit cut and paste. I think part of that went to the back, and it did there when I combined them. Now with that being all set, I'll go ahead and cut that. That'll be on my clipboard. I'll go ahead and select all of this, combine all that to one object, and then I'll go ahead and paste all of this in. Now my design's been completely set up. Next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and select everything here, and I'll just lasso all of this. I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to work on a new page. And we'll go to the standard page, and I'll select OK. Go ahead and paste this in, group this, and hit the P key, and that's going to center that to the page. I'm going to go ahead and size this up and scale on my page here just a little bit so I can work on it while I'm working with my effects. I'm going to come down here to page 1, right click on that and select duplicate page. You can't see it, but it's right here at the bottom. I'm going to copy layers and contents, and I'll select OK. So now I've got page 1 and page 2. Since I pasted this into a new document, it's going to be grouped. So I'll do is I'll go ahead and select this. I'm just come up here and click on Ungroup. I'll click off, and I'm going to click back on to the black and delete that. I'm going to work with the object that I created with the contours. When I want to go ahead and change the color of this to a different gray, so I'll get my color palette. You see these 3 little dots up here. You can left click, hold down, select that, and bring your color palette out. Now I'm working in X6, not X7. It works a little bit differently in X7. I'm going to change this to, let's say, about a 50% gray. Then I'm going to go to bitmaps, and I'm going to select convert to bitmap, and I'm going to select OK. I want to have anti-aliasing and transparent background turned on, 300 dpi, RGB is fine, select OK. Next I'm going to go to bitmap, and I'm going to come down to distort, and I'm going to go to displace. There's a couple of different effects in here that you can work with, but I'll use this cross-hatching here. I'm going to go with tile mode, and I'll click on preview, and we'll see what that does. And that's not a really strong effect. So I can slide these out and change these, or I can key them in. I'll go to 6 and 6, keying those in preview. And I'm kind of happy with that, but I think I want to go to 8 and 8. Then I'll click on preview, and I can see that. I can also, from this effect dialog box, minimize here and preview that on the actual graphic here, as you can see right there. And that looks like it might be okay, but maybe it's a little bit too strong. I'll go back to 6 and 6 and then click on preview. And I think that'll be okay. I'll select OK, and then we can zoom in and take a look at that effect. Now that looks kind of like a shredded fabric effect in there, as you can see right there. Now the next thing I do is I'll take this to make my effect. I'll copy this, paste this in. Now I've got one bitmap on top of the other, both set at about 50% of black or a grayscale. Then I'll go to Effects, Transform, and Invert. Then I'm going to come down here to my interactive tools. I'm going to go to Transparency. I'm going to go to Uniform, and then I'm going to select Color Dodge. I'm going to slide that all the way back to 0. And then I'm going to go Bitmaps, blur, and I'm going to go to Gaussian blur and hit preview. Now that's at 1 pixel and we can see that effect. Now I can bring that up a little bit. I don't want to go too much. All I want is kind of like just a rough outline on here. I'll select OK, and then I'll zoom in and take a look at that effect. And I can see now I've got kind of like a ragged fabric effect built around the outside. Now if I want to adjust this, I can go to Effects, Adjust, and Tone Curve. Just left click and pull this down a little bit, hit Preview, and see, we'll make that a little bit darker if I want to. And I can make some more adjustments to that or that effect. But at this point in time, I'm happy with that. So with that being set up like it is there, along with these edges, another thing that I can do if I want to strengthen that, I can actually take that and copy that and change the transparency mode to a subtract, and you'll see that that'll darken that also if I want to do some different effects with that. So one of the best ways to learn is to actually experiment with these things. I'll go ahead and delete that, but that's my effect for now. Now I'll go back to page 1, and I'm going to go ahead and get the black text here. Now this is grouped again, and I have the backup on page 1 just so I can work with my objects. So I'll need to ungroup this. I'll go ahead and select this black, I'll copy, and I'll bring this into my page 2 and I'll paste this in. I'm going to fill that with the 50% black also. I'm going to take that, I'm going to go to bitmap, convert to bitmap, same settings, anti-aliasing transparent background, 300 dpi, select OK. Then I'm going to go copy and paste again. I'm going to go to my transparency. Down here at the bottom, I'm going to go to uniform and color dodge again. Slide this all the way back to 0. Go to bitmaps, blur, and Gaussian blur. 2 pixels, and we'll preview that. And you can see that that's not a lot of effect. It's kind of like an embossed effect there. I'm going to bring that out to say, let's go out here to say right around maybe 13, and we'll preview that. And you can see now I've got a nice beveled or embossed or kind of like fabric puffed up effect going on here. And I can bring this down a little bit also and preview there and see how I like this effect. And I'm kind of happy with that the way it is right there, and I'll select OK. Now here I've got set up, and I'll go to my object manager. I've got 2 different sets of bitmaps here, and we'll select these 2. Get my pick tool here, and you can see I get next, and I can move these, and I can see what these are. That's the effect that's on the top, and I want to take that and go to bitmaps, convert to bitmap again, and that's going to be 1 bitmap. And then I'll take these 2, holding down shift from my object manager, with those 2 selected, bitmap, convert to bitmap, select OK, and there's that effect. Now this bitmap on top, what I want to do now here is add some effect to this. So I'll go to bitmaps, and I'll come down here to distort. Again, I'm going to go to displace, and we'll take a preview of that, and that's going to be kind of strong there. So I'll bring this back because I don't want that as heavy. I'll bring this back to say 2 and 2 preview. I want a little bit less of an effect there. Let's go to 4 and 4 preview, and I can see that effect and select OK. So that's kind of a really nice distress effect being built in there, and you can see that we're building this effect out, and you'll see where we're going with all of this here as we move along. At this point, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and take a look at my effects and see how they were applied. And I can see I've got some cross-hatching here, and I really don't want that. So I kind of want to deal with that. Now I want to make sure I got the right bitmap selected when I do some more effects here, so I'll just click on, because I know that this is on top here, or I could have selected this in my object manager. Then I'll zoom in here, and then I'll go to bitmaps again. I'm going to come down to creative. I'm going to come down to scatter, and that's set at 3 dpi, and I'll go ahead and preview that. And you can see that that kind of gets rid of that, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. One of the things you want to be aware of when you're working with CorelDRAW and doing bitmap effects is that your resolution really does affect how your effects are applied. This is at 300 dpi. Just to show you here, I'll go to bitmaps, and I'll go to resample, and I'll change this to say 100. DPI, select OK. You can see that got rid of some of that, and I could have worked with that as the effect also. But then you'll notice at that resolution, if I go to Creative, and I come down here to Scatter, and I hit Preview, I get a radically different effect. So you do want to be aware of that when you're working with your effects for raster in CorelDRAW. I'll hit Cancel here, and I'm going to Control Z to go back until I'm back to 300 DPI, and then I'm going to go to Bitmaps again. I'll go to Creative, and I'm going to go to Scatter. I'll go with the 3 pixels. I could go more if I wanted to say 21, get a really radical effect there. Depends on what you want to do with your design, really. I'll go back to 3 here and preview that, and I'll select OK, and that'll be fine for this design. Next, I'm going to want to go ahead and create my stitched effect. To do that, I'll go back to page 1 where I've got my graphic or original saved, and I'll go ahead and copy the black. Go back to page 2, paste that in. I'm going to left click here in the X to take the fill color to transparent or no fill. Then I'm going to right click here on the black. Then I'm going to zoom in and take a look here, and we're going to build out our stitched effect. The first thing I'm going to do is change the outline size. Take a look at 4 here. That might be too much. Take a look at 3. Still a little bit too much. I'll go with 2 here. We'll zoom out and see how big that's going to be, and that'll be fine. Actually, you might want to go with 1.5. It's really a judgment call based on balance and how you want your design to look. That being the case, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to go with a stitch effect. As you can see, that creates a simulated stitch effect. I'm going to come over here to my object properties, change my corners and my end caps to rounded so that these look like stitches. We're just simulating here, and I want these to look a little bit smaller. So I might go here to something like that, or I might change it to something like, say, right here. Or I could come down here to more and set up my own. I'll make this with 2, and then bring this back to 3, add that, select OK, and now I've created a custom stitched looking outline there. Now with that set up, I'm going to take that, and I'm going to keep a copy of the vector just so I've got that. I'll copy this, I'll go back to page 1, just so I've got a backup of that in case I make a mistake or I want to change something. With this selected, I'll go to bitmaps and convert to bitmaps, but before I do that, I want to go ahead and add some effect to this also. So to do that, I'm going to go to bitmap and I'm going to go to convert to bitmap, and I'm kind of rough this up a little bit too. Same thing, I'll go down here to distort, displace, and if I hit preview here at 4, that's going to do a lot of damage. So I'm going to bring that down to, say, let's go to 2 and 2 and hit preview, and that'll just rough those stitches up a little bit and grunge those also, and select OK. Now with these set up this way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to bitmap mode. I'm going to convert these to a monochrome so I've got color control with them, so I can change the colors of them. So I'll go to bitmap mode, black and white. I'm going to go to line art, zoom in here, and you can see these are roughed up so they look kind of like stitches. They don't look like vector graphics. I can see my threshold and see that's really not going to make any difference. I'll select OK. I'll left click here or here to make my background transparent. Now if this is a monochrome, I can right click and change the color of it, but I'll leave it black for now. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy that, paste that in, right click at 50%. Bitmap, convert to bitmap, same thing, 300 DPI, anti-aliasing, transparent background, select OK. Copy, paste, effects, transform, invert again. Then I'm going to go to my transparency tool and I'm going to go do the same thing with the color dodge. And we'll set that back to 0, and that's going to give me some effect on my stitches. So I'll go to bitmaps, blur, Gaussian blur. Now if we look at this at 10 pixels, because that's so small, the effect's not very good. But if we bring this down to, say, 1 pixel, preview, now I can see that effect. I might want a little bit more, preview, and you can see I'm getting a really nice stitched shading effect there. Select OK. Now I've got my stitch effect. Next thing I'll do is I'll go to my pick tool here. I'm going to go to my object manager, And I've got this bitmap here that's got the effect on it, or the lens. And I know that the one beneath it is the other one with the stitch effect. With both of these selected, I can move them and make sure. And yeah, that's the stitch effect. And I'll go take these two and I'll go bitmap, convert to bitmap, same settings, transparent background, select OK. Now, what I want to do at this point is I want to start, looking at this. Do I want to make any adjustments to these bitmaps? If I come down here to the bottom, I can look at this jagged edge and I might want to hit that. A lot of times I just like to move these, make sure I've got the right thing selected. And I'm looking at that and I'm saying, I might want to put some of that scatter effect on that also. So with that selected, I'll go to bitmap, I'll go to creative, and I'll come down to scatter and hit preview on that. And that's a nice effect there. I could go with, let's say, just one, just a little bit of an effect. Preview. Doesn't do too much. We'll go to 2 and hit preview here. And 2 will be okay, and I'll select OK. Now, what I want to do at this point is I want to start converting some things to monochrome just so I can make some adjustments and work with them. For example, the stitching effect. You notice that that's on top of that monochrome, and you can't really see through it. Now, to convert to monochrome, I'm going to use my advanced tools, and I'm going to go to Simple Steps, a raster. And these tools that I have on advancedtshirts.com, they work for a lot more things. You're just not aware of it unless you use them all the time. And here under Pose Steps, I've got a perfect monochrome conversion functionality. So with that selected, I'm going to go to Revert, and that's going to convert that to a grayscale. And then I'm going to go to Convert, and I've got to have my object selected here. And this is going to convert this to a perfect monochrome. So go ahead and select that, and then I'll click OK and let that process. And now that that's set up as a monochrome, we can see that our shading's there. Go ahead, and I won't need this here for a while, so I'll go ahead and minimize this. Actually, left click and I'll bring this up here. And now I've got my converted monochrome here, which is on top of the other layer here. This is a different layer because down here is all my bitmaps. So I'm going to move this down here on top. Now this is my monochrome. Now you'll notice if I change my monochrome, right click to say a gray, you can see the shading effect of that monochrome that's on top here that I converted. And if I want to make that darker, I do something like copy and paste that in and even get more of that look or that effect or that stitch effect shading in the design based on how I want to have that set up or how dark I want that to look. And then I can still come down here to this bitmap, which was the stitch, that I could make that an orange or say a yellow or a white or any color that I want to make it. With right clicking, if I left click, I'll get the background. If you want to get rid of that, you can left click and get rid of that there. But I'll go with, let's say, a gray in there for that. And that's kind of nice and dark now. Now this is all set up. I'm really kind of ready to go here as far as getting into the finals of the design. Now I want to do some adjustments and things like this with this design to get it finalized and make it a little bit more darker so it'll look all right on the actual t-shirt. So at this point, I actually think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and duplicate my page. I kind of like to duplicate pages when I'm working with these, I guess you could say, a little bit more advanced bitmap or raster type effects. So I'll go ahead and duplicate this page. I'm going to copy the layers and their content, select OK. And this just gives me backups in time to go to based on my pages. Of course, here I might want to hit a save also, just to make sure I've got this saved. Now, here I've got page 3, so I'm going to go here and I'll go ahead and expand on these layers here. And I know that this bitmap here is the bitmap at the bottom of the design. And what I want to do is I want to lift this design up and give it some depth so it kind of looks like the graphic is kind of popping out or puffing out of the t-shirt fabric. So to do that, I'll come down here to my interactive tools and I'll go to the drop shadow. And I'll just left click and go right here to the center and drop in a drop shadow there. Go ahead and change this to about 82, and I'll bring my feather in, let's say all the way to something like 2. And then I can zoom in and take a look at, see how that looks, and that'll be good right there. Now if I go back to my pick tool here and I can see my drop shadow here, I could select that in the graphic, but I'll just come up here to arrange, or I could hit Control K and I'll break that apart. Then I'll just click and select just this rectangle. I'll go to bitmap, convert to bitmap, 300 dpi, transparent background, anti-aliasing turned on, select OK. Now I want to put some effect on this also. So I'm going to go to my bitmaps here. I'm going to come down to creative, and I'm going to come down to scatter, and that's at 2. Let's go ahead and preview that. You see that's not a lot of effect. We'll go to 7. We get some good effect there. We'll go to 12 and see how that looks. And that looks really good. Now if I wanted more of a chunky effect there, I'll go ahead and hit cancel here. And I can go to bitmap. Let's say we'll come down to resample again. I'll go from 300 to 150 just to make that a little bit rougher. And then go to bitmaps, and I'll come down to creative, and we'll go to scatter, and we'll change this to say 7, and we'll preview that. And we can see a much different effect there. We can see now that's making that fabric effect look like it's kind of popping or puffing off of the graphic, as you can see there, and that's a nice effect. Now at this point I'm going to want to go ahead and convert everything to a monochrome bitmap. I won't want to do that in the document that I'm working in, because if I convert this to a perfect monochrome with simple steps raster now, I'm going to lose my undo history in this document, and I don't want to do that. So I'll go ahead and select all of this here, just lasso everything, and I'll copy that. And I'll create a new document, select OK, go ahead and paste that in. Then I'll go ahead and go to bitmaps, convert to bitmap. At this point it doesn't really matter, select OK. Then I'll go to simple steps raster. I'm going to go to revert to prepare this to be converted to a monochrome. Then I'll go ahead and select this and click on convert, and that'll convert this graphic to a perfect monochrome bitmap for me once that's finished processing. Go ahead and minimize that. Now, monochrome bitmaps are very unique in that if we do perfect conversions, we now have a bitmap that we can apply color to or spot colors to for either changing colors, working with colors, or doing color separations. You notice with this monochrome, if I right click and change it to a green or a dark green, I can change it to any color I want. Now that's with a right click, not a left click. It's the opposite of a vector object. Your left click is the background color, and you can take that out with a left click on the X, and the right click is your foreground color of the actual bitmap or your monochrome. So working with this, I'll go ahead and copy this. I'll go to Windows here, and I'll go back to my original document here, and I'll go ahead and delete this because I won't need that, and I'll paste in my monochrome. Now that I'm at the monochrome point, I could save this. Now what I want to do here is I'll go back to page 1 because I'm going to do some more effects here, and I'll click here. Now working on page 1, I can see that I've got my page that's set up with the outline there. That's my stitches, and what I really want is this curve that's down here. I'll go ahead and copy that, go back to page 3, I'm going to paste that in, and then I'm going to convert this to a bitmap also. So I'll go bitmap, convert to bitmap, 300 dpi transparent background, that's fine. I'm going to put some effects on this, so I'll go bitmaps, and then I'll come down to distort, and I'm going to use that displace again. And that's set up as 8 and 8 preview. I could adjust that, make it more or less if I want to adjust it, but that'll be okay. I'll zoom in here and take a look, and then I'm going to do a scatter on this also. So I'll go to creative, and I'll come down to scatter. We'll take a look at that, and that's going to look all right. I might want to go, let's say 2 here, and I'll go ahead and change this to a 2 and click on preview, and we'll see how that looks. Let's take a look at 4. Preview, okay, 4, and that looks good to me. Finally, what I'm going to do is add an effect to this. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my Fashion Factory. So I'll go to my Advanced Tools, and I'll click on my Fashion Factory 3, and that'll bring that up in CorelDRAW. Now that my Fashion Factory is open, I'll be ready to start working with textures. I'll go ahead and minimize that because I do want to first convert this RGB to a monochrome bitmap. So I'll go bitmap, mode with this, and then we'll go to black and white. I can go to line art and just select OK. That's now been converted to a monochrome, and I can right click and change the color of that. I'll change that to a white, but for now I'll go with black while I add my texture effect. Then I'll go back to my Fashion Factory here, and I'll go to textures, system textures. Then I can just thumb my way through or key my way through, clicking on the arrow here to find the effect that I want to work with. And I think I want to work with this scraped. That'll make a nice effect. Now with that selected, I'll go ahead and click Apply Texture as Transparency. Go ahead and minimize this. Then I'll come back over here to my Interactive Transparency tool. And one of the great things about working with Corel is that this is interactive, so I can left click and change the effect. Now I can see how that's applied into my graphic. I can also come up here and change my starting and ending point. Left click here and drag it out, and then I can see that effect. And I can really dial and tweak this in any way I want to based on how much effect I want or what size I want that at. And that looks pretty good right there. Now with that selected, I'll take this bitmap and I'll just drag it beneath. Left click, hold down here, and then I'll right click and I'll change that to a white. Now you can't see that because it's white now and it's in the background. Go ahead and select all of this here, and then I'll go ahead and group this, and this design is set up and ready to work with. And I'll be able to go ahead and set this up on a comp for a client. To set up my comp, I'll just go ahead and open up my design base. And that'll give me all of my comps that I can work with. That'll take just a minute to load. I'm not going to go ahead and update it this time. Go over here and I'll go to comps. I'll come down to, let's say, my men with this selected, and it has to be grouped or everything's going to center. Go ahead and click on front comp. That'll set that up for me. Now you can set up your custom graphics for this file if you want to. You just have to locate it, but I'll delete all of that. This here I'm going to change to, let's say, a green t-shirt. Now for my shadowing, I'm not going to want to go with a black. It could look okay, but I really want to go with something like a dark green for the shadowing. I'll come over here and I'll come right up into something that's real dark and green. Kind of a blackish dark green for the shadow. I'll go ahead and select this and I'll bring this up here. Now I've got two objects. I'll go ahead and ungroup these, and then now if I can zoom in, I can see that my green is kind of like the same color green of the shirt. So I'll right click on that, adjust that monochrome bitmap selected, and change that to a darker green. Now if I think I need more depth of color in the effect, I can do something as easy as copy and paste that in, and you can see that effect built into the design. So really nice design when we compare that to what we started with. And I'll actually go back here to page 1 and I'll grab what we started with. I'll click here and I'll just get the curve here, and we'll copy this. Go back to page 3 and we'll just duplicate this comp, and we'll paste that in, and we'll resize that, and you can see the difference in the design quality that you're going to have working with effects like this compared to a shop that's just going to be able to work with, and I don't want an outline on that, that's just going to be able to work with flat graphics. You can see a dramatic difference in the design and the quality, and it looks much more like a fashion design or something that is retail level quality that's going out of your shop into the local market. Once again, you can use this for upselling. You show both these to the client. You say, well, we put this together based on what you asked for, but we set this up also, but these are going to cost another $2 or $3 a shirt. And you ask them, which one do you like better? You don't ask them if they want to pay more. You just ask them, which one do you like better? And most of the time, they're going to say, well, we like this one a lot better. And they're thinking $2 a shirt or $3 a shirt based on your upsell. But in reality, if there's 400 shirts, well, if you're getting 400 shirts at $3 more for the upsell, that's $1,200, and you've just done a little bit of extra work, and you're setting up an extra color on press. And the distress and grunge is very forgiving in the printing process. So we'll go ahead and wrap here in this tutorial on converting your basic vector designs into fashion apparel looks and doing upselling, which is really going to help your marketing and your revenue. Go ahead, as I said, we'll go ahead and we'll wrap here, and we'll see you in our next video.